Hello, welcome back. Is everybody still awake? Rocking on? I'm seeing like 2 responses. Is everybody present? Well, I hope you've had a good day today, learning from all these various panels and breakout sessions. I know it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure, which is fun, so you might have had different themes in your day, but in my day I've been learning a lot about, again, sort of the business case and how we finance a sustainable transition. And I keep returning to something Andrew said this morning about child labor and how we often talk about sustainability and sort of the sustainable transition as something that is too costly, or that we really have to, work to figure out how are we going to make this happen. And he made such a good point this morning, pointing out that we already don't do just the cheapest thing. There would be ways to do things cheaper, one of those being, like in the past, using child labor. And what switched is that at some point, someone, whether it was industry, whether it was government, whether it was the citizenry, drew a line and said, we are actually not willing to externalize costs in that way. We are not willing to make things cheaper by having child labor make this item. And I think that's just a little bit of a good comparison to remind us that there is an ability to draw a line in the sand, and we can sort of, that might come from a lot of different places, but I think there's real power in this room to be part of that decision-making process and saying, where are we willing to draw the line in the sand? Where are we willing to say, it could be done cheaper, but we're not willing to do it that way anymore. We want to do it right, and do right by the people that are involved in the supply chain, do right by the landscapes and the animals and the air and the water that are involved in the supply chain. So that's something that I'm just sitting with. In this closing plenary, we're going to dive a little bit into the concepts of the risks and rewards of sustainable materials production, and we're going to get into our closing panel, which, as you can see, we are going to have many people involved in. I'm excited to have people from both sort of the synthetics and natural materials supply chain, but we're going to start by looking at a short film from Textile Exchange called Now We Live in Paradise. And this film is set in Brazil and documents the journeys of 5 farmers who the Textile Exchange team visited earlier this year. And they're not able to be with us today for a reason that I'm becoming increasingly interested in as sort of a diversity, equity, and inclusion thing, which is that visas are hard to procure for a lot of the people that should be in this room. So the way we're going to hear from some of these folks today is through this video, which is a bunch of farmers talking about the land that they farm and live on and how they've created thriving ecosystems in these spaces and restoring once degraded land. So we'll start off with this, and then we'll come back on and introduce our panelists afterwards. With that, we'll cue the video.
Quando eu comprei isso aqui, era uma terra já muito cansada, trabalhada, né? Até algumas pessoas falaram que eu tinha jogado meu dinheiro fora. Qual é a diferença que hoje tem? Você acorda de manhã, você acorda pelo cantar dos passarinhos.
E onde a gente veio, né, em Linhares, no Espírito Santo, quando a gente chegou lá era muita mata, a gente colhia de tudo que plantava, colhia, e quando a gente veio embora de lá, já foi em função da destruição da natureza, clima já, né, já totalmente descontrolado. E quando chegamos aqui, a gente pensou exatamente numa terra que fosse de preferência pura mata, e tivesse água boa. E a gente encontrou aqui.
Hoje eu digo que eu moro num paraíso, olhando assim, que se você tivesse 20 anos atrás fazer essa entrevista hoje, só tinha o corpinho da casa aí, era uma casinha com 4 compartimentos, nenhuma árvore dessa aqui, então era totalmente diferente. E o consórcio ele vem para complementar 2 coisas. Coisas que a gente sabe que o milho suga tudo que a terra tem, e outras culturas, tipo feijão, tipo árvore luminosa, né? Que devolve um pouquinho que a terra necessita. 7 culturas que tem lá no roçado. Tem milho, feijão, algodão, gergelim, melancia, pepina e abóbora. Eu tenho amendoim, eu tenho arroz, muitas coisas mais. Tipo assim, tem um cheiro verde, tem um limão, tem laranja, coco, tem uma carambola, tem uma diversidade de coisas.
Antes de plantar o algodão, era monocultura, né? Era o milho ou o milho junto com o feijão. E hoje a gente tem uma diversidade de outras culturas, né? Associadas, o algodão, o feijão, o milho, o gergelim, a abóbora, o amendoim. Então ele agrega mais valor. E aí quando a gente começa a trabalhar agroecológico, a gente está devolvendo para a terra nutrientes, cuidando bem dela, não queimando, não usando agrotóxico. A agroecologia é ter um cuidado com a terra, né? A terra que nos oferece tantos frutos, né? Tantas coisas maravilhosas.
A propriedade pequena, ela não pode ser só uma unidade produtora, ela tem que ter mais pontos produtivos. Aí o produtor que tem a visão bitolada só na pecuária, não faz conta do outro lado, ele vai desmata, ele limpa tudo e quer colocar um capim. Aqui não tenho muita vergonha de dizer não, que quem tem algumas matinhas a mais aqui somos nós, a nossa família aqui. Cuida, né? E a gente tem a consciência de que tem que preservar, né? Não pode destruir, não pode derrubar.
Aí todo dia na televisão, noticiário de muitas enchentes, de muita destruição, e eu creio, né, que é devido à natureza está sendo muito agredida, está sendo muito violentada, né?
Quando você faz uma monocultura, quando vem uma doença, pega todo mundo.
Se a agricultura nossa continuar no ritmo que vai, a tendência é que o mundo se acabe. E o povo se destruir por si, porque a agricultura não vai mais existir. Se não haver uma conscientização do povo para destruir menos, usar menos veneno, usar menos queimadas, né?
Nós temos muitas áreas degradadas. E aí as pessoas, ao invés de aproveitar essas áreas, tenta ir para uma área nova, que ela é mais fértil, desmatar ou qualquer coisa dessa forma que, para a pessoa menos orientada, acha que é mais benéfico. E é o contrário.
É o nosso trabalho, é o nosso dever exatamente transmitir para as pessoas aquilo que a gente aprendeu de bom.
Tem que ser educação, educar seus filhos, educar seus netos, educar seus vizinhos.
Temos que fazer nesses polos produtivos para que as pessoas se conscientizem, para que a gente possa transferir isso para as outras propriedades.
Que as pessoas possam ter consciência e valorizar, não só aquela peça bonita que já está lá prontinha, mas assim, o trabalho de formiguinha, que começa lá pelo homem, pela mulher do campo.
All right, well, now that we heard from a few farmers who couldn't be here, we're going to get to hear from some material producers who are here with us in person. And I'd love to start by having each of you just do a little bit of an introduction of yourself and your work to give everyone a little bit of context for what you do. And Ana, we can start with you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ana Rodes. I have a technical background as PhD in textile engineering but I'm passionate about sustainability and the circular economy. I'm a true believer on the fact that ESG and sustainability can really create value, and I'm happy to be driving impact as head of sustainability at Recover. Yesterday, in the opening session, it was highlighted that one of the main issues of our industry is waste generation. So at Recover, we are addressing this issue by creating recycled fibers, cotton recycled fibers from textile waste. And we have been doing that for more than 70 years. So it's in our DNA. We know how to do it. We have the experience, we have the knowledge to provide high quality fibers that meet the requirements of the fashion industry to be introduced again, and also the lowest environmental impact possible, because we are a mechanical recycler, and also as part of our sustainability strategy, we are trying to reduce our environmental impact as well as to comply with social and environmental standards, also from Textile Exchange. And maybe a key added value that we have is that we do not only offer that recycled fiber, but we also provide a customized technical service to support the entire supply chain on how to adopt those recycled materials. And we have it at a scale because we are operating in Europe, in Spain, but we also have hubs in Bangladesh, Pakistan. We have team members here in US that are today here with me. I don't know exactly where. And by the end of this year, we will be opening our new hub in Vietnam. So we are ready to really enable a sustainable transformation in the industry.
Amazing. Cannon?
Good afternoon. My name is Cannon Michael. I run my family's farming operation in Los Banos, California, so just to the north of us here a few hours, and I hope some of you are going to be joining us for a tour on Friday. I'm the sixth generation of my family to be in the business. We've been farming the same land for over 160 years. Our cotton has been a staple for us for many years, but since 2016 I've taken our farm on quite a bit of a journey of diversification. We've moved into a lot more vegetable crops. We also do organic and conventional production of cotton and some vegetable crops, really producing over 20 different crops any given year, so quite a bit of diversity. At the farm, we're blessed to be in a really unique ecosystem. Local environment around us is very diverse. We sit adjacent to a very large wetlands complex known as the Grasslands Wildlife Management Area. It's the second largest contiguous wetlands in the United States, second only to the Everglades in Florida. This time of year, we've got just a wealth of birds migrating from as far north as Alaska all the way down on their journeys down into Mexico. So quite a bit of diversity. We farm also along the San Joaquin River and have many riparian corridors that run through the farm. And we've done a number of projects to enhance the biodiversity around the farm. We've also done some projects where we're composting green waste for the municipalities to turn that into organic certified compost that we can use on the farm to help combat some of the climate change issues that California is trying to take the lead on. And so have a great group of employees that help us. I've got a nice team behind me that allows me to come and do things like this and speak to you all, but happy to be here, and it's a great subject to close the day, so thank you.
Over to you, Shay.
Hi everyone, my name is Shay. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ambercycle. We're a Los Angeles-based company based here closer to downtown. Hopefully you're all having a wonderful day. If you're wondering if the weather is this nice all year round, it is. It's an amazing place, so hopefully
Don't make us all jealous.
It's a great place. And so, yeah, we're a 9-year-old material science company that's really focused on the circular polyester industry. I started the company in 2015 with my roommate from college, Moby, and we started the company with a very simple idea. Can we turn an old t-shirt into a new t-shirt. And that initial idea opened us up to the whole world of apparel. I have a technical background, and we really wanted to develop a solution for all of the waste that we have in our closets. If you look at the world's closet together, it's mostly polyester. And so what we really wanted to develop was a way to turn all of that old material back into new raw materials to supply a circular future for apparel. We started the company in 2015, went through a first 4-year process of developing a chemical process that separates the polyester from the other fibers that may be in the garments that you wear every day. Our output is a polyester chip or a raw material. We then integrate that to the supply chains that produce yarns, fabrics, and garments, and have been really fortunate to start to scale into really large volumes. I'm wearing a jacket today that's made with Sycora, which is our regenerated raw material. Our material has above 75% lower carbon emissions compared to virgin polyester. And so we've been on this journey to really try and scale up the process. Between 2021 and 2023, we started a demonstration scale plant in the Midwest that was able to produce around 2 tons per day. We then did a lot of validation with the supply chain to figure out, not just for brands, but also the supply chain, how to decarbonize and move to a more circular raw material supply chain. We are now really excited to start to develop commercial scale. We've started to break ground and are starting to build a commercial scale plant, and I'll have some more news on that very shortly, to start to deliver real volumes to the apparel industry. For us, it's really exciting to build the entire ecosystem. We are really focused on trying to develop the polyester circular business, and over time, start to develop that for additional other fibers. So yeah, thanks so much for the time today. It's very exciting to be here.
Tamika?
Hi everyone, I'm Tamika Peoples. I'm founder of Seek to Shirt. We're a small batch, vertically integrated t-shirt production company, and we specifically focus on sourcing our cotton from organic and sustainable cotton growers in the US and Africa. In particular, Burkina Faso, and we refine our entire process for production 100% in Africa, and we look to see how we can make sure that African Americans and black farmers, black cotton farmers in particular, are a part of the sustainable apparel production process. We started this company back in 2017, and we're based out of California and have operations in Burkina Faso with a true lens on how does more black cotton farmers be involved in the work. One of the things we also do is look to pool cotton farmers together so that their cotton can be provided to brands in a sustainable way. We really focus on the social impact of what cotton has been to our community. Black cotton farmers in the US are less than 400. There's less than 400 black cotton farmers in the US, and how do we get them involved in the sustainable production process? And in doing that work, we create partnerships with organizations like FiberShed and implementing climate beneficial practices on those landscapes so that they are a part of the solution as well, because most of these communities have been doing this work for a very long time. It is just very important that they're involved in it from a top-down and bottom-up approach. One of the things that we really focus on is being able to provide resources back to those growers. So we developed an internal farmer enrichment program that focuses on providing tools and resources directly back to those farmers with the resources that we earn in our company. So it's a true social enterprise approach to how we provide support to the growers to being involved in this sector. And we are really proud of all of the partnerships that we have in doing this work. Climate beneficial model is one of the models that really looks at regional implications of sustainability. What are the cultural practices that these growers are already doing, and how can those practices be involved in the change on landscape? So we're really excited about the work that we do with being able to source those growers in the cotton. And the Black Collective allows the other brands and other partners to source that cotton in a sustainable method, knowing that we're doing it in an ecological way.
And Paula.
Hi, I'm Paola. I'm an agronomist from Patagonia, Argentina, with my husband, who is over there. We are wool producers. We have a family farm, and we rent another two where we have a lot of sheep. And, but we also are consultants. We are part of a company that is called Obis 21 that also was born in Patagonia, Argentina, like 21 years ago. And Obis 21 seeks to promote large-scale regeneration of the land through livestock management, farming. We are a net of producers, technicians, and professionals, and we seek to learn continuously, kind of a feedback, and we learn from each other. We always try to improve the management we are doing. We have a productive model that help us to care for and try to regenerate the environment. We like to develop the people, so each one can develop and get better with time. And we provide also tools to implement profitable livestock business for them. And Obis 21 was born in Patagonia, but is operating in all Argentina. We are kind of the node of Obis, but there are nodes in other provinces, and we are also working with holistic management and rangeland management in Chile, in Brazil, and in Paraguay also.
Amazing, thank you. Well, I know we're here today to talk a little bit about partnership and collaboration, or linking and building, as the tech bros would say, is like, these are all terms that get thrown around a lot, but what I've heard from so many of you is that what's most helpful is hearing concrete examples of what other organizations are doing. So I want to ask each of you in as concrete a way as you can, with as little jargon as you can, to talk about what kinds of partnerships you're involved in your organization and how that is helping you move towards financial resilience and environmental sustainability. And maybe you can go in not in order. Someone else want to start besides Anna? Cannon's looking ready.
Sure, I'll start. I think a farm looks at this, or I look at this as a farming perspective a little differently in terms of, I first think on the basic level, just being a producer of healthy food and fiber is sort of a partnership with not only the citizens of California, but the larger United States. I think we're partners in providing needed products to the world and beyond. But when we understood, just as an example, I mentioned our compost center, when we saw the data that California was collecting about how much emissions were methane emissions coming out of landfills, we permitted a site on the farm to be able to accept green waste from municipalities so that we were ready when the laws were changing, that we could be a solution partner to the 15 million tons of green waste and organic waste that needed to be diverted out of landfills. And we partnered with a company that was already in the compost space to help us navigate how to actually do the work, and that's not our core business, but so we brought on a partner. Now the farm is receiving luxurious amounts of compost as an input that we used to buy, and we're able to put that back into our soils, demonstrate carbon sequestration, but also help solve a problem for the state of California. So again, that's another kind of these examples of partnerships to me that really make a lot of sense, is what more can a farm do? When we saw pollinator health declining, saw land is going to be retired in California because of water issues, we began growing native seeds and plants and started a native seed company so that we could help with the restoration work that needs to be done with pollinator health. We work with large NGO groups like River Partners, work with the state of California, work with others. So it's this constant drive of what else can we be doing as a farm? It's not enough for us just to be the food producers, even though I think that's a lot. Certainly want to be able to do more, working with research institutes to figure out food waste, food solutions where we can get more produce off of the farm, ugly produce, things like that. How can we benefit the folks who maybe don't have the disposable income to get access to health, fresh local food like some other folks? We want to make sure that that's available, and what are the mechanisms that we can do that with. So I think we also have a contract necessarily, or a partnership with our employees. We have to have healthy workers to be able to engage and to do the heavy lifting that it takes to be a farm, and we can't do it without them. And so having the programs in place to support them, giving them the opportunities for advancement and education within the company, having programs devoted to their children, scholarships, school supplies, things to promote their well-being and health of their families, a partnership with our community to support education and healthcare are the primary directives that we like to support so that the people can be living in a healthy environment. So those are maybe larger esoteric things. I think more concretely in the textile side, we have finally been able to get one really concrete partnership with a large brand that did do a multi-year commitment to our farm to buy cotton at what I determined to be a fair price for the next 3 years. And so there's not many examples of a demonstrable commitment and partnership, and certainly takes a lot of work. We've done a lot of dating necessarily to try to get there. It's only about 10% of our production is going to that. But again, we're open to partnerships. I think the way we view the world is that farms are part of a larger solution set and certainly have opportunities to do more than just be just a material producer or a food producer. So that's a long answer to what I think about partnerships, but we certainly are involved with a number of them.
Yeah, if I could just dive in. I know for our team, one of the things that we looked at was black cotton farmers had historically been underserved with respect to resources and lending, and also having access to technical assistance in order to do these transitional practices. So we partnered with organizations like Fibershed, Carbon Cycle Institute, and pursued a stack approach to how we would get that funded. We looked at opportunity with the USDA Climate Smart Commodities grant and pursued that, and were able to put together a tactical plan to provide technical resources to the growers and for the input costs to be offset and supported by this grant. Another thing that we did was looked at the challenges that our growers were experiencing with respect to believe it or not, something as simple as 30-day nets and ag retail relationships are really critical to them being able to provide cover crop seeds and the natural inputs they would need in order to do these transitional practices. So we created internally as part of our farmer enrichment program what we call an ag-back retail program, where an organization like R.W. Griffin partnered with us in order to support the supplies and resources that those growers would need in order to implement some of these practices on the ground. So it's these real tactical solutions that you can do inside of the partnerships that we have with organizations and institutions to actually bring these resources to the growers. And another thing we thought about was how do we institute things like micro-granting, because organizations like Pot Liquor were supporting us, and 11th Hour were supporting us to think about how we supply these growers with tactical resources for equipment and tools and resources that they need in order to transition to strip till on their lands. So it's the things that we think about that are more wraparound services for our growers so that they can be involved in some of these initiatives and not overlooked with respect to climate smart programs.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. When we think about equitable partnership, it was something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. For us, partnership is something that's crucial for our business. We came into this industry in 2015 with a technical background and no experience in textiles. And so for us, it was really important to understand what is the entire supply chain, where we then have done many partnerships across the upfront supply chain all the way down. For us, the supply chain and the partnerships we've done start with the raw materials, and they actually end with the consumer. Because a number of us, and probably all of us in this room, are all thinking about how can the consumer be more educated to be able to make better choices about the materials that they're using. And so on the upstream, raw material suppliers and the supply chain, for us, what's been really important is thinking long-term. It's something that's really hard to do. The short-term traps are really easy to take. But for something so important, like moving to circularity, thinking long-term is the most important thing. We're building for the long term. We're not specifically thinking about what financial transaction this means today, what specific hurdle we're overcoming. If we have long-term focus, then a lot of those ups and downs can be very easily overcome. And actually, we found with the long-term grounding, it's easier to go faster. On the brand side, we've actually been able and very fortunate to work with a number of different brands. We also were able to sign a long-term commitment with a very large brand, Inditex, to supply material to them, a very core partner to us. But also what's been very interesting is being able to work with smaller brands as well. We've worked with brands like Reformation, who's down the street from us, Gani, as well as yesterday we announced a new partnership with Arc'teryx, which is very exciting for us to start to build the brand base. For us, making sure that there's transparency and focus on the long term has been the most invigorating part of our journey. We think there's a lot of room to grow. Circularity is something that all brands, designers, etc. have to adopt. And so for us, making sure that throughout the entire chain, focusing on the long term has been crucial. The other thing that I'll mention in terms of Equitable, we've been investing a lot in our own brand. Psychora is our regenerated alternative to conventional polyester. Performance in harmony with nature is what we like to say. We believe that telling the consumer story is equally as important as delivering the raw materials. For us, it's important when we started the company, you should be able to walk into a store and feel like you're actually buying something that's good for the world. And so for us, that means investing in the storytelling, investing in the end-to-end process integrity, and trying to communicate to a customer what we are trying to do. And I think that's actually the core message that a lot of brands have been able to learn from us, and we've also been able to learn from others as well.
Maybe as another textile to textile recyclers, we share the same approach as you. We believe, from Recover, our mission is to create this large-scale sustainable change, and for that it's obvious that we need to partner with brands and with the other supply chain actors within the industry that share the same goals that we have. Because and maybe we need to understand this, we are also supporting them on achieving their own goals. Because and right now with the new upcoming regulation requirements, we are supporting the brands to really meet and to achieve the minimum mandatory recycled content. We are also supporting the supply chain on adopting the recycled material, which really means that we are supporting them on optimizing their processes and also to reduce their own waste. And as he was saying, we are also really committed to support the final customer communication, because we offer like a service with our marketing and sustainability team on how to really communicate the environmental impact savings, of course, based on validated data. And maybe a different approach is that we are also partnering with other technical companies that are supporting us to improve our own process.
For us, partnership has been working the best way to create collaboration between the farmers, the technicians, and the investigators to create opportunities for change, but always centered in the farmers and in the land that they influence. And we have a school of regeneration that teaches not only students but us and another teachers too. We have a program called Plus R, that is Plus Regenerative, that helps, technical helps for the farmers to introduce the changes needed to regenerate. And we have a quality assurance team that helps to make that transition. And we also monitor all the changes, because we believe that the metrics should inform and be helpful and benefit for the farmer, as well as the metrics need to be auditable and significantly robust. But most important, all the method that we do and the way we monitor has to be doable for any size property, and it has to be affordable for the farmer, for the producer. And so it has to have a reasonable price. And we have a standard that is called GRASS. It was born in 2012, and it has many versions. And the standard provides all these things. It's robust and it's doable. And it has been seen by the brands and the researchers and the NGOs that has visited us. And it also is been seen by auditing schemes of carbon programs that have found that the protocol is robust and reliable. And it also helps the farmers and the technicians to keep learning all the time. So partnership for us is that, is many people, farmers working together with technicians and investigators, and
Great. Tamika, you're talking about some of the challenges that black farmers in the U.S. face, and obviously the history of black people and cotton in this country is very complex and one we could get into for a long time. But in the short time that we have, would love to hear sort of the top level bit about what are some of those challenges that the black farmers in particular face in being part of the sustainable fiber production in this country.
Well, to start, black farmers in general, I would always consider them an endangered species. Over the last 20 years, there's over 20 million acres of land that they've lost and historically have been challenged with a lot of discriminatory practices in them still being in agriculture. So oftentimes, because of their land mass, literal size of their farm, they're not considered for a lot of the programs for sustainability and recycled materials. They're just not considered for these programs. And so oftentimes they're looking for larger farms that can help with GHG. And so that means black farmers are typically left out of these programs and 10 years behind the curve when it comes to sustainability. For black cotton farmers, there are, I would say, 0 that are officially certified organic in the US. And the challenges with that means that they're left out of marketplaces and opportunities. So now you have this conundrum of historically being left out of the equation, and then for opportunity to come your way, you have to have land mass in order to be involved. And so I would just say the biggest challenge is inequity of consideration for black farmers and black lands. So when we think about fiber, it's important for us to bring them into those conversations, because most of the practices that culturally are relevant on these lands are some of the sustainability and resilience practices that we talk about implementing every day. And so it's almost honoring what is already being done and considering them a part of the work that needs to be done for sustainability. So the challenges are money, access to resources. Oftentimes they're sharing equipment. And so what us and our team are thinking about are how can we set up equipment trusts and stacks of funding so that we can address the equipment needs of these farmers. And bringing them along with the resources is addressing how do we get capital into the hands of these farmers so that they can transition into these practices. I really value the partnership with FiberShed and Climate Beneficial, because these are actual whole farm plans that are based on a region and that actually consider cultural practices as a part of the sustainability methodology. So what that means is when you're talking to farmers who can't really talk legacy or transitions of lands, now you can talk to them about a 30-year plan for their land. And what does that look like for them? And just hearing their comments and saying like, hey, we really need this. We haven't had an opportunity to be involved in these things. So we have to systemically think about how we actively get black cotton farmers involved in the U.S. in this work, and other fiber farmers. There's those who have alpaca and sheep, and not overlooking them because of land mass size, because the history will tell you there's a reason why their lands are so small.
Yeah, I hope that stands as a real challenge to anyone in this room as you're thinking about equity, to think about this piece as well. And I bet Tamika would be happy to talk to you if you want to come see what it might look like to connect with them. You're bringing up some of the things about the cost pressures that come up with sustainability. And Anna, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and what you all have learned from collaborating with brands about managing the cost pressures in sustainability.
Yeah, well, when price is the main driver, it is certainly a talent, but we have scaled our operations, allowing us to offer a competitive price that, without compromising our quality or sustainability, can deliver what the brands and the customers are looking for. So we have several collaborations in our website, and I mean, anybody can check them to demonstrate that this is possible. So for example, maybe Primark or CNA are good examples, because together we have developed several collections that use recycled cotton fiber, showing that also sustainable fashion can be affordable while creating value across the whole supply chain. Because I think that we all agree, as we were saying, that for those partnerships we need transparency, we need to create value, as we were saying, from the recycler to the final customer, and we need to share the same goals with the other actors we are partnering with. And I think that we know that we cannot achieve this alone, so that's why partnerships are so important for Recover.
I think that the figuring out how to finance all of this is a theme that's come up a lot today, including from textile to textile recyclers. And Shay, I'd be curious to hear from you about how you think about partnership in that sense, whether it's coming from brands or outside funding, of how you all have sort of financed the work that you all are doing.
Yeah, you know, it's a really good question. We've been fortunate to raise around $60 million in equity finance to fund the initial development of the technology. And we've learned a lot about what's important in that first phase. You know, one of the most interesting pieces of advice that I've gotten about how to finance a new technology, a new business model, is to develop the business model such that you can speak the language of the financiers. When we were just starting out, there was a guy who mentioned to me, you know, the US GDP is $19 trillion. Surely you can get like $1 billion. That should be no problem. And I kind of laughed, but at the time it was kind of, there is something insightful about that, because we essentially have these huge problems and the industry wants to solve them. The capital markets want to participate in new growth opportunities. What is the disconnect? And so what we've really observed over the past 2 years is that capital providers in the initial early stages are investing in an idea and a vision, and that vision can develop the technology base to a point where it can really work. It is our responsibility to do the work, though, to make it investable. We have to do the step-by-step work to ensure that the raw material suppliers and the setups are correct, the downstream supply chain is also correct, the brands understand the importance of this entire ecosystem, such that we can speak the language of the capital providers that can deploy significant amounts of capital to solve the problem. What was really shocking to me was a lot of the large volume capital providers actually want to solve the problem. They just don't know how. And so actually it goes back to the initial points that I was making around the long-term value of the partnerships. Building on a crystal clear vision, what you want the world to look like, and then speaking the language of the capital providers across the stack, both debt and equity, allows for an investable project. We're now looking at deploying a couple $100 million into the infrastructure that we're looking to build, and having gone through the step-by-step work, not just myself and my co-founder, but the entire AmberCycle team, has allowed for us to speak the language. Because at the end of the day, the people that are investing in ideas are actually also wanting to make the world a better place. But bridging that communication gap allows for the capital to flow. And what I can say is that these issues are extremely important, not just for the industry, but for the entire world to set an example. For example, the apparel industry has an opportunity to set up circularity such that it can be deployed in multiple industries. And so from our observation, it's now very attractive to start to develop these things, but we as an industry have started to mature and are now starting to see that actually come to fruition. So one example I will give is we've been very fortunate to work with brands and supply chain partners. What's been really shocking to me has been the interest from the supply chain to actually also invest in the future. We oftentimes think of this is just the brand that needs to make the decision, But what has been, again, really shocking to me is the families that own the businesses that are actually doing the work. They see the problem. They see the waste on their floor, and they actually believe that there needs to be solutions to these problems. And it's our responsibility to then deliver solutions that can then be investable. And so, yeah, it's definitely picking up steam, and much to the support of the entire industry to start to continue moving to more investable solutions.
Yeah, I think when we think about money, it's always fascinating to me to think about who it goes to and who it doesn't. And as Andrew is sort of making the point in the morning plenary, if you were there, there's been such a concentration of wealth in sort of at the top in over the last 10, 20 years. And in my line of work, I talk to a lot of farmers and hear from them about their experience with certification programs and sort of sustainability transitions. And what I so often hear from them is that, you know, we're shouldering a lot of the burden of trying to make this transition, but we're often not getting much financial help. So Cannon, I wanted to hear from you a little bit about what happens when brands don't share those margins with growers, and why it's so crucial that the financial benefits of these kinds of partnerships are passed along to farmers as well.
Well, it's a good question, and I think for context, our farm is growing essentially what's the finest cottons, some of the finest cottons in the world in terms of extra long staple and Pima as our primary product. So it would stand to reason that many of the brands that are interested in sourcing our type of fiber are generally working with fairly large margins on some of their products, and the actual raw cost of the cotton isn't necessarily the biggest impact to their margin. But it's been incredibly hard to unlock the partnerships and to really find partners who are willing to continue to work alongside us and share in some of the upstream margin that we don't see. And I think you also just have to keep in mind, there's so much risk on the farm side just in terms of weather and climate. We're experiencing really low yields this year from the hottest July we had on record, and from bug pressure. But ultimately, not sharing those margins just doesn't make the system sustainable. We're at the lowest cotton acreage also for our own farm, just because we're looking for other options just to really transition away from cotton. Essentially, it was half of what we used to grow maybe 10 years ago, and it's gotten down to maybe a quarter of our acres are devoted to cotton, or probably going to be less. So, to drive long-term sustainability, to drive programs that are actually going to quantify carbon sequestration, to highlight all the stuff that we're doing on the social side of the equation. I mean, you're really, I think it's short-sighted in a lot of ways, because you're going to lose an opportunity for really the best stories in cotton are going to essentially go away, and it's going to be this same old, drive to the bottom. We've fooled the consumer into thinking that cheap cotton and more products, or lower cost products, are better. But I certainly think a lot of brands have built very successful businesses off that same part of that model, and essentially we've got to find ways to find more equity, to find more distribution of that money, so that farms can continue to have the supply. So I think there's some real threats to brands that want to have sustainable sourcing and want to have projects that they can ultimately probably extract much more value down the road by being able to tell true stories of sustainability and true stories of social programs and things that are really positive, that I think the consumer will be willing to pay more. I don't think it has to be incrementally so much more either. So I don't think it's some number that's completely ridiculous for a fiber price. But I do think we've got to give producers access to reasonable programs, long-term contracts, some price stability, which also cuts both ways. I think there's price stability. I think we can look both at upland and extra long staple markets and see there's spikes and declines all the time that happen. And so ultimately, I don't really see, especially in the luxury brands, a lot of reflection of lowering garment prices to when material prices come down, raw material prices come down. I don't really see any kind of corollary between lowering retail prices. So anyway, hopefully in the long run we can find more opportunities to share. I understand every large company has boards of directors, and putting forth a program where you're going to say you're going to maybe reduce some margin initially could be career changing for some people. But I think ultimately we've got to act with some responsibility. I think, the world is changing, and hopefully we can find more ways to support growers so that we can stabilize supply chains, tell better stories, access more value, and do real good, not some of what's happened over the years where sustainability has been turned into a lever, essentially to cover up a lot of bad behavior. I think we can hopefully forge some projects by knowing the farmers, knowing where the goods are going, and again translate into value for every partner in the chain, not just the retail brand.
Yeah, and it's such a good point that if, their brands don't exist without their supply chain partners. So if we're not investing in the resilience of the farmers and the garment workers and the factories, we're not investing in the resilience of this industry, and you won't have a brand if you cannot pull from these supply chains. So I think there's got to be a little bit of the zooming out, understanding that yes, you're accountable to a bottom line and a board of directors and all of that, but also understanding that we live on a bigger system, which is this planet, and it's all interconnected. And we don't get to keep sort of externalizing those costs without any consequences. I guess on that note of continuing to think about farmers, Paola, I would love to hear if there was one thing that you wish other players, whether that's brands or institutions, would understand about partnering with farmers. What would that be?
We believe the origin of equity is knowledge, and that's why it's important, the role of teaching and the ability and the access of knowledge. Those are essential. And in Escuela de Regeneración, the School of Regeneration, there are different trainings for the different protagonists of the regenerative path. Those are the producers, the technicians, NGOs and companies. But let me ask you, have you ever wondered what the world would be like if regeneration was taught at schools? In Escuela of Regeneración, there is a program called Semilla Regenerativa, or Regenerative Seed, and it's a program for schools in rural areas that aims to place that seed of regeneration in the students. And let's face it, the students are the future landowners, producers, consumers, decision makers, technicians, brands. So it's a wonderful program, and the brands have the chance to be a program sponsor or a school sponsor of that. And as Andrew said this morning, I think that is long-term value creation, to invest in the students and the kids. That's what I wanted to say.
Thinking about the future, yeah. Talking about next generations. Well, there's so much wisdom up on this stage, and there's so many more questions I would love to ask all of you, but I do want to be mindful of the fact that I know folks have dinners and meetings and things coming after that. I think what I'm sort of left with as we end this panel is really thinking about equity, and the sort of title of this panel was thinking about equitable partnership. And I guess one thing I would want to leave with you all is that equitable almost shouldn't have to be in there, because a partnership that doesn't involve equity is just an exploitative relationship. So if you have a partnership and one partner is walking away feeling like, man, we really got the short end of the stick, that's not a partnership, that's exploitation. And so I think that my hope would be is that we can think about what it means to partner with whether it's an institution, whether it's a farmer, whether it's a supplier in another way, to really think about what it means to share both the burden and the benefit that comes from working together, and really think about what it means to embed equity. So on that note, I'll let you all go, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Enjoy your evening. Thank you so much for